Welcome everyone as you're joining in. We'll go ahead and get started. Good morning and thank you for joining us for this fall 2025 GSA Forum. My name's Atlee Keller. I'm a public engagement specialist with Stantec. We're really happy to see you this morning and we want to get started with just a few of the logistical pieces for today's event. So first and foremost, this event is being recorded. That recording will be made publicly available after the event. The only portions that will not be made or will not be recorded are those breakout rooms, of which we'll have 2 sessions. We've also enabled closed captioning, so if you want to turn those on, you can select that option at the bottom. If you're not seeing the closed captions button, it's under the More section of your toolbar, so you can go ahead and click More and it should show up there. We do ask that you keep your microphone muted today if you're not speaking. And of course, do participate in that breakout session. You can unmute yourself there. The Zoom profile that you have, you can include your first and last name and your organization. To change your name, you can go ahead and go to the Participants tab, click on the ellipses and select Rename. You'll also notice that there are multiple tabs on your Zoom app. So if you're ever missing the presentation, you can always tab over to the presentation that's spotlighted. I'm seeing folks still coming in, so we'll give them a moment to join in, just going over some of the logistical pieces. We do encourage you to use that Zoom chat today to engage in the conversation. We will be sharing links and resources throughout the event. Those resources will be compiled and shared out after the forum, similar to past events. And then we'll also be sharing out the directory of participants for those of you that have opted in to sharing your information. If you are having any technical difficulties, you can reach out to my colleague, Candrielle Clark, and her name is in the chat with tech support to the right of her name. All right, we are moving in, we can go to the next slide, into a fun and interactive activity to get us started and warmed up this morning. So there will be a link shared in the chat, and you can go ahead and click that link and start engaging in that poll that we have, and we'll get those results shared up shortly. So this is a quick 3-question poll. All right, so we're seeing the results coming in. In what region of California are you all joining us from? It looks like we have a pretty even distribution. There is someone joining us from the Pacific Ocean, so welcome, happy to have you. All right, lots of you here today, and we're happy to have you. You can keep filling out this Mentimeter throughout the event so we can get that idea of who joined us today. You can go to the next slide. All right, so our fun question for the day is if your GSA is hosting a holiday party, what is your role? It looks like we have a lot of those head chefs and menu makers. We're happy to have you for our GSA staff. We have a few of our lead greeters and circulators, our board members, and then a good amount of special guests and recipe developers, our consultants and community members and NGOs. Pretty good potluck. Eager to be there. All right, next slide. And the most exciting, what are you hoping to learn about during today's event? I'm seeing lots of what's new, planning, best practices, general Sigma, anything new, GSA updates, Sigma updates, lots of movement here. Very exciting. Periodic evaluation, you are in the right place for that. All right. We can move back to the slides. And thank you everyone for participating in that fun activity. Again, it's not too late. If you want to go back to that Mentimeter, you can fill that out and share your excitement for the day. Now, to really get things kicked off, I'm going to pass it to Keith Wallace, Assistant Deputy Director, Sustainable Water Management at DWR. Take it away, Keith.
Thank you, Adley. Appreciate it. And good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Fall 2025 GSA Forum. Thank you so much for taking the time to participate in the event. Also, participate in that Mentimeter event. It's always fun to see people's responses to that. But we're really excited to have you all here. My name is Keith Wallace, and as Adley mentioned, I'm the Assistant Deputy Director for Sustainable Water Management here at DWR. I oversee our Sustainable Groundwater Management Office. So this marks our 5th GSA Forum since we relaunched the platform in 2022. And so far, we had the largest number of registrants that we've ever had in a GSA Forum, which is fantastic. So super exciting. DWR hosts these GSA Forums as part of our assistance role to support local implementation and local control of groundwater management. And we view state assistance as a critical component of SGMA implementation. And we're always looking for ways to support the locals. So we hope you find these events beneficial and that they help you work towards achieving your groundwater sustainability goals. Next slide, please. So last year, we celebrated SGMA turning 10. We highlighted the progress made over the first 10 years of the SGMA implementation. But today we're going to talk about how we can build off that progress. So our theme today is SGMA after 10 years, how to keep the momentum going. It's structured around 3 key components: GSA onboarding, projects and management actions, and periodic evaluations. So we're going to have conversations with fellow GSAs that focus on how they've been navigating and overcoming various SGMA implementation challenges. But we also have DWR informational items and also breakout rooms to allow you to share your experiences with one another. So I'm going to share a more detailed agenda in just a few minutes, but first I would like to talk about the overall intent of the GSA Forum series. So next slide, please. So many of you have attended a GSA Forum event in the past, so you're familiar with our approach. But for those of you that are new to the GSA Forum series, I would like to share what we're trying to accomplish with these events. So DWR, we established this platform as really a venue for you, the local agencies that are implementing GSPs, to come together and engage with one another with themes that are focused on specific implementation topics. So we've created this space, for you to exchange ideas and interact with one another. But we've also, brought you all together as a way of creating a space, really to exchange ideas, and so that we can use this, forum to highlight SGMA successes, to see if they can be replicated in other parts of the state, and then also share some challenges and lessons learned, in hopes that we can avoid them, elsewhere. Next slide, please. So here's our agenda for today. As I mentioned earlier, we have 3 main components. The first is a discussion on GSA onboarding, which will include a brief presentation from DWR's Heather Shannon on the importance of GSA onboarding and what DWR has developed to support your onboarding efforts. Then Alex Rabidou, the Assistant General Manager with the Solano County Water Agency, is going to join us for a conversation about GSA onboarding actions that have been taken in Solano County. And then this is going to be followed by a breakout session. The second item is a discussion about project and management actions. And that's going to include a presentation from DWR's Rihanna Ennis, who's going to share some updates on the department's project and management action module, or PMA module, and how GSAs can best interact with it. Then Lacey McBride, the Water Resources Manager with Merced County, is going to join us to talk about some projects and management actions taken in the Merced County GSA. And we're going to have a breakout session after that as well. Then, lastly, we're going to have a brief break. After a brief break, we're going to have Monica Salias and Ben Gooding from DWR give a presentation on the periodic evaluations and annual reports, which we saw as something that people are interested in talking about today, which is great. And they're going to provide some reminders and identify some things that you may want to consider when you prepare your next periodic evaluation or next annual report. And then that's going to be followed by a Q&A session to give you all an opportunity to ask questions that you might have about the periodic evaluation and reporting process. And then finally, we're going to wrap things up with Deputy Director Paul Goslin. He's going to share some updates on several program efforts, but also provide some closing remarks. So that's a lot to cover in a relatively short amount of time. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Heather Shannon so we can get started and talk about our first agenda item for today. All right, Heather, go for it.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Keith, for that introduction. As Keith mentioned, my name is Heather Shannon, and I'm a supervising engineering geologist here at DWR within the Sustainable Groundwater Management Office, and I lead one of our outreach and engagement sections. So today, the topic I'll be covering is some of the efforts that the department is working on to support groundwater sustainability agencies in the process of onboarding new staff and board members in their respective basins. This effort was really initiated after hearing from our staff via direct feedback from GSAs, GSA representatives, and also through meetings where exchanges were occurring and staff were just communicating the challenges with having staff turnover and getting folks, new board members up to speed on all things Sigma. And so we wanted to try to develop some assistance efforts to help smooth this process and provide some guidance moving forward. Next slide, please. So why does onboarding matter? To many of you, the answer is probably pretty obvious. Implementation of Sigma is complex and requires an understanding of the law and regulations. Sigma also requires GSAs to make management decisions that will affect long-term actions. So having staff and board members that are informed on the requirements and challenges is really critical to the successful implementation of your plans. And I think this is probably not new to any of you, as it's been over, many of you have been working for over a decade on this effort. But given all these things, staff turnover can really disrupt the continuity of work. So during the implementation process, it's really critical to have clear materials to bring new staff on board and to be able to make important, timely decisions. So for those GSA representatives that are comfortable answering, I'd encourage you right now to open up your chat box. And if you have experienced staff turnover or new board members or board member turnover, I'd encourage you to add a Y or a yes in the chat box. I think that will help to kind of frame this discussion as we move forward for this morning session to give us an idea how many folks are really dealing with this challenge. So I'll pause for a second. I'm seeing some responses coming in. So really, I think this definitely highlights the importance of having a clear onboarding process to allow for that consistent understanding, such things as your GSA governance, GSP implementation, state requirements, resources, etc. I mean, there's a whole gamut of things that that I know you all are probably grappling with to get folks up to speed. Next slide, please. Thanks for those that are putting responses in the chat. I think it will be interesting to go back to and reflect on. So initially, before starting on this effort, we developed and issued a survey in May of 2025 that was distributed to GSAs. And the goal was to get a better sense of the materials that would be helpful for you all to include and for us to include in an assistance effort. And also we wanted to gauge general interest in us pursuing something like this. The map on the left side of the screen identifies basins where we did have responses, and it gave us pretty reasonable geographic coverage, although this forum is an opportunity for us to gather additional information. So we're looking forward to hearing more from you all. The survey did include questions that allowed those responding to highlight items they believed would be valuable to include in an assistance program. They also identified things that they thought we could leave out or wouldn't be important. The survey results indicated that the top 3 formats for orienting new staff or board members included: 1, an orientation meeting with the GSA staff and board members; 2, an onboarding workshop; and or 3, a customizable template for a new member handbook. So once again, I'd invite you all to jump into the chat if you're comfortable. And I'm curious, or we'd like to gather some information for those that want to participate, if any of these approaches have been something you've taken to get folks on board. So drop a 1 for orientation meetings, a 2 for onboarding workshops, or a 3 for a customizable template or handbook that you may have prepared. So if we have a chance at the end of this presentation, we'll tally those up and see what kind of responses we're getting. Next slide, please. So in response to the survey to support the GSA onboarding process, we're pulling together a few customizable documents. The objective for developing these documents is to make them practical, adaptable, and easy to integrate into your GSA's workflow. So for that reason, we're prioritizing really kind of clarity, simplicity for practical use. The 2 primary items that we're developing include the GSA handbook template and a GSA onboarding checklist. The survey that I mentioned in the previous slides did indicate that GSA staff members and board members often have different backgrounds, which I think is probably no surprise to you all, that folks that are supporting this effort often come from different backgrounds and may have a different level of understanding of SGMA, of the requirements, of groundwater. And so for this reason, we really want this handbook to be something that can be customizable, so that the GSA staff can really make sure it's addressing the needs within your basin. Next slide, please. The GSA handbook template is currently organized in 2 main sections. The first section will focus on the introduction to GSA and GSP specific information. So this is a place where the GSA can add details specifically about their governance, maybe an organizational chart, or information about a joint powers authority if one exists in your basin, etc. This is also a place where the GSA can add details and links to GSP documentation, whether it's the basin's webpage or the SGMA portal. There's, that is for you all to decide what you think would be most useful and easy for your new staff or board member to access information. The second section will provide a broader overview of SGMA, and that would include SGMA, the GSP regulations, GSA authorities and state agency roles, the timeline for GSP evaluation and assessment, and DWR planning and technical assistance resources. The materials identified in section 2 are not just for onboarding, but can be useful to support ongoing implementation of your plan and compliance. So although we are in the process of drafting the handbook right now, we're interested in hearing more from you all. So reason for having this forum and talking about this topic today. And really identifying any additional resources or tools that could be supportive in this onboarding process. So as we've already talked about, it's been 10 years, but people, there's turnover, things change, and we still have a long way to go. And so we want to make sure that you all have assistance and resources to help during these transitions. Next slide, please. So to build on some of the questions I've already asked, I wanted to send you off with a few additional prompts or things to be thinking about as we move into these next segments of this GSA onboarding topic. So outlined here are a few questions. What are your onboarding challenges? What have you faced? Oh, sorry, my computer just froze. Hopefully y'all can still hear me. What onboarding successes would you like to share? What's been most helpful to onboarding new staff? And are there gaps in any of the materials that we've listed so far? And how would you evaluate the usefulness of these onboarding tools? Sorry, my slide just hid on my screen. All right, I've got it back up. Sorry about that. Next slide, please. So to wrap things up for this first session, the next steps in the process will be to gather feedback from you all through this meeting and any other emails that we receive following this event. And our hope is to incorporate that feedback and release materials in early 2026. We want, as I stressed before, we want these tools to be as useful as possible. So please provide us feedback. You can provide that feedback by emailing us at sgmps@water.ca.gov. And please make sure to include GSA Forum GSA onboarding in the subject line to help us make sure we track those emails down and incorporate that feedback. So now that we are at the end of this presentation, I want to see if we're able to go back to some of the feedback from before, if we're able to tally any of that information up. All right, so it looks like folks that responded to the tally regarding what they found most useful, it sounds like we had the most folks felt that a GSA orientation or new board member orientation was something that they had used. So that was 10 people responded with that option. 5 people responded that that an onboarding workshop had been successful, and 5 additional folks identified that a handbook would be a useful option for onboarding new staff. So thanks for those that participated in that question. And now I invite you all to, if you are a coffee drinker or a tea drinker, to fill up your cup of coffee, tea, water, or beverage of choice before we transition into this next segment. Also, just a quick reminder, as we're moving through the agenda today, we'll be dropping links of the relevant materials in the chat that may be useful to you. Also, as I mentioned just a minute ago, if you have thoughts or feedback, you can contact us or email us at sgmps@water.ca.gov. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm to kick things off to this next segment. I'm very pleased today to have the opportunity to have a conversation with Alex Rabideau, the Assistant General Manager for the Solano County Water Agency. For those not familiar, the Solano County Water Agency, or SCWA staff, help support the Solano Subbasin GSA. Alex has worked with SCWA for over 20 years on engineering and water resources issues. And over the last 2 years, he has been assisting the Solano Subbasin GSA General Manager to run the day-to-day activities. Welcome, Alex.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much, and good morning, everybody.
Good morning. So thank you for accepting the invitation today, Alex, and to have a conversation with me and to share your experiences on the onboarding topic for the Solano Subbasin. To kick things off, tell us a bit about your basin.
Yeah, thanks so much, Heather. So for most folks, I think most folks are familiar, but Solano County is really geared in between the Bay Area and Sacramento. So really along the I-80 corridor. Sometimes kind of remind you of I think there's a song, the Flyover song, which again I'd like to be proud is in Solano County. It's an important county, though oftentimes people are driving to Tahoe or driving back to the Bay Area. But again, it's a pretty amazing area. And what I think makes it unique, and I think again, there's probably many similar counties in California, is that we really have a pretty strong mix of both urban. So we have a mix of both small and large urban cities within the county, but within our basin as well. And then a mix of really, I would say, high productivity agriculture, high value ag, and then low value ag. Things like irrigated pasture, dry land farming in parts of the southern part of our county as well. So we really have a little bit of everything. Okay, a fairly diverse county, a pretty diverse basin. The other thing to really want to share is that again we actually have a pretty diverse water portfolio. And groundwater really within our basin is about a third. So again, we have about a third of really groundwater makes up our water portfolio. Delta water, since we border to the Delta, makes up the other third. And then we have our local Berryessa supply makes up a third. And a lot of it depends where you live within the county, which is what water or blend of water you receive. But groundwater is again pretty significant, pretty important part of our water portfolio. And then maybe the last thing I'd mention is before we had as much surface water as we did, going back into the early 50s, our county was overdrafted. So I think our region experienced what other parts of the state are probably currently experiencing, that again, we were not in a sustainable situation. And then we did have surface water that really helped stabilize and continues to stabilize our basin. So thanks so much. And hopefully, again, just a little bit about our basin.
No, thanks, Alex. That's really helpful. So just curious, since 2017, how many GSA board members and staff have you seen turnover, or has your agency had turnover? And I know you mentioned quite a diverse background, but what kind of background have new board members come to the table with?
Yeah, so that great question. And I'll try to kind of bite-size those pieces off a little bit here. So what's interesting with our basin, as I mentioned, we have a variety of urban and strong ag and rural parts that really incorporate our GSA. And so one of the things we found is actually on our agriculture, more of the rural agricultural side, a lot of our board members have actually been pretty stable. Again, we have folks that represent the Farm Bureau, our agricultural agencies and entities, and those tend to actually be a little bit more stable, and I would say actually pretty knowledgeable. And I'm not sure how that reflects across the state, but I would say again our agricultural partners are pretty dialed in. Obviously, water is really again that's part of what their livelihood is. And as we go to our urban side, I would say there's a little bit more. A lot of our members are elected officials, so this would be against either city council or mayors that obviously are elected, and those rotate in and out, based on elections. And so those, I would say, sometimes there's a little bit more of an education on our urban partners. But again, once they kind of get their feet wet, some of the onboarding, then they again are pretty knowledgeable. But I would say one of the challenges with cities, both small and large cities, is there's a lot that city council and mayor members. I mean, they're looking at police and fire, parks, schools, and water really is not. I mean, it's a part of what they're looking at, but oftentimes not at the forefront of other issues. So again, I'd say there's a little bit more of an education or need to kind of bring our urban partners up to speed. And again, versus our rural folks, again, I would say are pretty dialed into this on a variety of issues. So that's kind of again how our board makeup is. On a staff level, I would say kind of similar, where again, some of our agricultural partners are pretty stable on the staffing side. I mean, the water agency, I think, as Heather shared, I've been with the agency 20 years, our general manager 21 years. So we're lucky in that sense. We've had pretty long, pretty good longevity with our staff. And then our cities, again, I would say there's moderate longevity. Again, a lot of things that happen, retirements, and so you get new staff that circulate over. And we've seen that again with our urban partners, and again, trying to bring folks up to speed. But again, with a little bit of orientation, I think they're usually ready to go. But one of the things, and again, I think Heather, this maybe the second part of your question, in a sense, how do we kind of educate, or again, how do we in our basin, for our GSA, kind of help get people on board? One of the things that is really, again, kind of exciting is we have a couple tiers of ways of collaboration. So one of them, again, we have what's called our Solano Collaborative. And so that really is, and it used to meet monthly. So every month we'd really have all of our different GSAs within our county. We actually have several GSAs, our Solano subbasin being the largest, but we actually have a variety of GSAs within our basin. And so on a monthly, now it's quarterly since we've become a little bit more, things have stabilized. We meet on a quarterly basis, really get all the GSAs together, share what's going on, big topics. And that's at a staff level. So our collaborative is really geared at a staff level, all the different staff members. In our case, this includes staff from Sacramento, throughout Solano County in our region, and in the Delta region as well. So really, again, I think pretty helpful at a staff level. What we also do on a board level, skipping to the board level, is historically, again, we've done an annual board workshop. And so this is a chance for all the GSA board members, particularly, again, really encourage new board members to really, again, topics. And again, the staff level, we really work, with staff. We also have, I'm going to get the name wrong, but really our local partners that DWR helps fund through Stantec, and we use Ag Innovation, which has been really pivotal for our basin. And so Ag Innovations we use to really help be the facilitators. As an engineer, I think my kids would attest, probably not always the greatest in facilitation. And that's where, again, we really work with partners. This is what they do day in and day out. And so it's really helpful, again, particularly with our board members. And so we do that once a year. We have kind of I would say, it's really geared toward a board member workshop. It's, again, our board members are front and center, and as staff, we're usually supporting that on the back end to really help get our board members educated. And then lastly, we do have a virtual town hall that we do every year that's really geared towards our public. So really, again, trying to engage our public. Even though the GSA is also a public agency, there's not a lot of public engagement. I don't think we've ever had, I'm not sure we've ever had, other than original Prop 218 assessment, I don't think we've ever had any public members come to our GSA board meetings. But through the town hall, that's a really good forum. It's done in the evening, open to the public, done via Zoom, to really try to engage folks that have an interest. And this is something we work with our resource conservation districts. And so that's, I would say, are kind of our three tiers of a board. board, staff, and public level of trying to engage.
Wow, that's great. Thanks for sharing that, Alex. You mentioned these board workshops, as well as these other the town halls. Have you developed any specific resources that has your GSA developed any specific resources for those workshops to assist in this education process? And in your opinion, it sounds like it's been successful. Is there anything else useful that has come out of preparation for those meetings, or is there anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, so great question. So one of the things that we do is try to, again, on particularly for our virtual town hall for the public, those are recorded. So again, those are recorded. They're posted on our Solano GSA website. Many of our collaborative meeting minutes are put online as well. Just so again, if folks have an interest or staff at different agencies. So again, as resources for the public, for our board members. And then even for our board workshop, again, those presentations are provided, posted on our website. And really, again, it's kind of a forum to document, both to document what's going on, but really also as a resource for folks to see, hey, what's going on, what's happening within the basin, and is really as a resource. Sometimes, again, people aren't curious until it becomes kind of a topic of concern, or you go through drought periods, and then all of a sudden water becomes a little bit more at the forefront. And so those are things that we really, again, and a lot of really thanks to our to Ag Innovations, who's really our facilitator, that really helps kind of again partner, helps put together our minutes, helps really again work with staff on these workshops that really I think have been really successful, engaging. And one of the things that we've really seen over time is again we've started to see our participation kind of slowly go down a little bit, and part of that we sort of attribute is most folks that if they wanted to be informed, they've been informed. And I think we've got to look at, kind of new ways to kind of keeping the public, keeping our folks engaged. That, groundwater, I think, as Heather you mentioned. I mean, groundwater is a long-term, aspect. It's not going to go away. It's really going to be here for the future. And we again really need to keep kind of our public and our board and staff really engaged.
Well, it sounds like you've really been fortunate, Alex, to have a lot of success in addressing these challenges, educating, getting folks up to speed. So, any final words of wisdom or things that you want to share for those that really are kind of not knowing where to start with this process?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing that again I think is is unique, but again I think there's other, many parts of the state probably experience this as well. But our region, I would say, maybe has a little bit of hypersensitivity, and maybe that's kind of the wrong term for it. But I think again our folks really experience and really are seeing firsthand, kind of what the impacts would be from regulatory impacts. So in other words, things like the Bay Delta Plan, which I know is very important for a lot of the Central Valley, is pretty front and center for our region. Chromium 6 regulation by the State Water Board, pretty important for our drinking water folks in our cities, where it's really a regulatory challenge that we see. And so I think, one of the things that our agency went through, again, now about 25 years ago, is we went through 10 years of water litigation. And so it really predates my time at the agency. I came in right after that had settled. But again, the temperature is going through, litigation with the State Water Board is not a lot of fun. Going through water rights challenges, through the regulatory process is really not a lot of fun. Nobody wins. I mean, maybe attorneys win, but everyone else doesn't. And so I think that was really kind of our mission as a region, is really getting front and center. A lot of our local supplies, our surface water supplies, are locally managed, and so I think there's really a strong interest by our cities, by our agricultural community. Let's keep things local. Let's really have a sustainable base and try to get front and center. Because I would say really the risk of the State Water Board coming in, and certainly no offense to the Water Board, but I think locally there was just not an appetite to really even take on that risk. I think it was something as local, local water managers, local community, we really wanted to be kind of in control of our destiny, if you will. And so that's really, again, I think where really where we went as kind of a region and community. And so I think that's been really helpful as we've navigated and really our folks have navigated through the GSA and again, trying to sort of, it's kind of like a rodeo trying to corral everyone. But I think we all recognize the big picture and realized, our original goal was to try to get all of the GSAs as one, everybody as one GSA for Solano. That wasn't going to be successful. There's local politics, local sensitivities, and so really our general manager stepped back and said, okay, that's not going to be where we're going to go. We're going to be respectful of that, of the local politics. But again, we really need to work together, and I think again we've been able to do that pretty successfully, and recognize we've got a few GSAs, but again we're all rowing the boat in the same direction.
This has been wonderful. Thank you for chatting with me this morning. And I see there's at least a question in the chat. So if you're comfortable, Alex, we'll share your contact information in the chat so that folks can reach out to you directly if they have questions. But again, thank you so much for joining this morning and having this conversation with me. I'm sure folks will have more questions for you, and as we move forward. And I think you've sparked probably a lot of thoughts in folks' minds that will carry us into the breakout session and have encouraged conversation. So thanks again, Alex.
Great, thanks so much.
And I'll turn it over to Atlee.
Thanks, Heather, and thank you, Alex, for that great conversation. So we are about to go into breakouts where we're going to build on that topic of GSA onboarding. And this will be the first of 2 rounds of breakouts. And just as a reminder, these breakouts are a key component of the GSA forums because they give you all as practitioners that opportunity to share your experiences, share best practices, resources, lessons learned with your peers, and create that kind of community of practice with one another. So we encourage you to use this time in the first of the 2 rounds to talk about what's worked well in your onboarding processes, any challenges you face, strategies or tools that you found that have helped you along the way. Each group will have a facilitator to help guide your discussion. You'll have about 20 minutes for this session. And for these breakouts, we'll have you self-select your group. So if you identify as a GSA staff, a board member, or a technical consultant that's working specifically with GSAs, please join one of the first 8 breakout groups as soon as we open those. We want to keep those GSA groups pretty evenly distributed. So based on the numbers, we're looking at about 20 or so less folks per room. So if you see a room that's greater than that, choose the next number. And we'll go ahead and open those rooms so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you who do not identify strictly as a GSA, we first want to take a moment just to thank you for choosing to come to today's forum. You might be representing a consulting firm who isn't currently working with a specific GSA. You may be just a really engaged community member or an NGO. But we want to invite you to join the Interested Parties breakout group. This one is specific for you to get some targeted input from you. So we invite you to select that breakout group that's titled Interested Parties. If you have any issues joining the breakout groups, you go to the toolbar, select breakouts, and then it should pop up with your options. Again, if you're a GSA, or working directly with a GSA or a board member, please join one of those first 8 GSA groups. And if you're an interested party, you can join the Interested Parties group. We will meet back here in about 20 minutes. So we're looking at about 10:05. If you choose not to join a breakout room, that's fine. We ask that you stay muted and join back here in the main session at about 10:05. If you have any issues, you can go ahead and type in the chat. Again, if anyone is having issues, you can go ahead and type in the chat and we'll try to help you out. If you aren't able to identify the different groups in the breakouts, go ahead and scroll down. There's a long participant list that you can use to join those different groups. With that, I will hand it over to our next speaker, Brianna Ennis, who is a water resources engineer with DWR.
Thanks so much, Atlee. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. So yeah, my name is Brianna Ennis. I'm a water resources engineer in the GSP review section of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Office. And my presentation today is going to go over the PMA module and some of its features. So next slide. Okay, so we're going to be covering a variety of topics today. So first, we're going to have a very brief PMA module refresher. Second, we'll take a look back at how the PMA module has progressed over time. Then we'll go over how to use the public PMA module features. After that, we're going to talk about when GSAs need to be updating the PMA module on their end. After that, we'll go over how GSAs can provide implementation updates. Then we'll have some closing remarks, and then lastly, I'll go over some resources. Next slide. Okay, so just to refresh everybody about what the PMA module and its purpose is, because I know that we've had a couple presentations about this. It's an application on the Sigma portal that is intended to store and track GSP's project and management action data and their progress throughout the implementation period in one centralized place. So furthermore, the implementation updates provided for PMAs in the PMA module will fulfill the requirements for reporting on PMA's progress in the annual reports per the GSP regulations. So we are intending for the PMA module's implementation updates to replace the need to have the updates provided in a PDF format in the annual reports, but we'll get into more detail about this later in the presentation. Next slide. Okay, so another thing to refresh everybody about is the types of information that are stored in the PMA module. And I just wanted to remind folks of this because I will be talking about these two data types a lot during this presentation, and they do have different requirements. So the first type of information is the PMA module base information. So these are things like description, location, estimated cost, estimated benefits, et cetera. And this corresponds to sections A through E when viewing the PMAs when logged in as a GSA. And you can kind of see that on the left side here. And then the second type of information that the PMA module will be collecting is PMA implementation updates. And these are updates that are submitted at least annually to each PMA describing progress with implementation. And these are really what are tracking the progress on the PMAs over time. And this correlates to Section H on the GSA side. And this is considered separate from base information because implementation updates do need to be submitted on a recurring basis, while base information does not. Next slide. So the PMA module is a pretty new addition to the Sigma portal, and we've made a lot of progress over the last year with it, which I just wanted to recap. So back in October 2024, DWR staff initially populated the PMA module base information by using information that was provided in the GSPs. This was compiled by DWR in a spreadsheet format, and it was sent to each GSP sent for each GSP and sent to all the GSAs for their confirmation and review of the information. So some of the GSAs are on a little bit of a different timeline than this, depending on when their GSP was submitted. So this is still ongoing for a couple basins. So then November 2024 through the present, GSAs have been reviewing those DWR populated spreadsheets and sending their updates and edits back to DWR to update base information for all their PMAs. And so this is still an ongoing effort. So some GSAs asked for a little more time on this, which is totally fine. So I did want to let you all know that if you want to do batch updates, or if you still have the spreadsheets and want to send them back to do a batch update, just reach out to me and we can work through getting your updates updated into the module. So then in January 2025, we released the PMA module exclusively to the GSAs on the Sigma portal. And this release only released the base information. March 2025, we released the implementation updates feature, and April 2025 was the public release of the PMA module data on the Sigma portal. Next slide. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to go over are the public PMA module features. And as I mentioned, the PMA module data is currently publicly available on the Sigma portal, so you don't have to be signed in to see it. And I just wanted to give an overview of the features that the public PMA module has so that you can all use the PMA module to its full potential. And also so that you know how the members of the public or your stakeholders might be viewing your PMAs. So you can navigate to the public PMA module by going to the Sigma portal and clicking the PMA icon on the site banner, which is where I have this red arrow here pointing to on this screenshot. And then when you get to the module, you'll see this table here load up. I'm just going to call this the PMA table for this presentation. And each row of the table would correspond to an individual PMA. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to give an overview of the features of the PMA module on this slide, and then I'll show some of the features in a little more detail in subsequent slides. And I apologize if this is a little bit small. So the PMA table here, as it loads by default, is only showing a fraction of the information that we have available in the PMAs, but we do have a lot more info available. So the first thing I wanted to mention is you can click anywhere on a PMA's row to bring up a pop-up window with all of its details, which is what I have marked as this little box labeled number 1 here on the table. And I can show what the details pop-up looks like on the next slide. And then if we go to the box labeled number 2 here on the top left of the table, there's a show columns button. And this feature here is so that you can adjust what columns or fields are showing up on the PMA table. For number 3 here, we have an option to export all associated base information for selected PMAs in a spreadsheet format. Moving on to number 4 here, we have an option to export PDF worksheets of selected PMAs. Number 5, we have a feature to download all associated implementation updates for selected PMAs in a spreadsheet format, so that is separate from the base information. And then lastly, for number 6 here, we have the search and filter box, and then the options that are selected here control which PMAs appear in the PMA table. So we go to the next slide. So now I'll just show a couple of these features in a little more detail. So this is what the PMA details pop-up looks like if you click on a PMA row on the table, and you can scroll down on it. So the user would be able to see all the details that were submitted to the PMA, like its full description, location, benefits, implementation updates, etc. And so you can also view this in full screen or print it out if you want to view it outside of a pop-up. Next slide. Okay, so this is showing just how the show columns feature works. So by default, when the PMA table initially loads, it's only showing really basic information like PMA name, description, GSA, GSP. However, you can have it show any field in the PMA module in a tabular format on the table. So, some other columns you can have it show are things like quantitative benefits, benefited sustainability indicators, costs, and more. And that's just so that you can easily compare information between PMAs in the PMA table. Next slide. So this is what the exported spreadsheets would look like. This is showing a base information export spreadsheet, and the implementation updates export spreadsheet looks really similar. Next slide. So this is what the PDF exports look like. They include both the base information and implementation updates information all packaged in a PDF format. Next slide. And then lastly here, we have the filters box. This is going to be the tool that you use to find PMAs with your desired criteria. So it has a keyword search along with several filtering options for fields that we have in the PMA module, such as PMA type, basin, the PMA status. And I apologize if the text may be kind of small in the screenshot, but I do encourage you all to go and explore the filters that we do offer. So, just as an example, if I wanted to find a PMA that is recharge related, that's also related to farms, I could do something like type in the word farm into the keyword search, which I've done here. And then I can go down to the PMA type field and then select direct aquifer recharge to filter to. Because that's a category within the PMA type field. And then the results that show up in the table would match both of those criteria. It might be kind of small in the image, but it returned 40 PMAs out of the total 1520 that match both these parameters. So that wraps up the quick rundown of the features. And everything I talked about today and more is available in the PMA Public View Instructions Manual. And I'll be sending out a link to that with resources at the end of the presentation. So next slide. Okay, so the next thing we wanted to do is answer the question, when do GSAs need to update the PMA module? And the answer to this does depend on what information we're talking about. So for base information, we're expecting that GSAs only update base information as needed. So that means anytime your implementation plans change from whatever was input into the module, you just make edits in the module, which can be done at any time. With that being said, if the implementation plans for your PMA do change, we do expect that GSAs still adhere to the outreach and engagement process that you've laid out in your GSP. However, as far as providing the updates in the PMA module itself, we're just expecting that you make the edits whenever you can, anytime. So additionally, you can add new PMAs to the PMA module at any time if you add more projects or management actions to your base's GSP. As for when GSAs need to provide implementation updates, this is a little bit different. So DWR has been messaging that starting in the water year 2025 annual report submittal, so with the deadline of April 1st, 2026, at least one implementation update will be required per PMA per water year. So to clarify this a little bit more, by April 1st, when the annual reports are due, you will need at least one update for each PMA for the previous water year. So, for example, on April 1st, 2026, when the water year 2025 annual report is due, you'll need at least one implementation update per PMA for the water year 2025. So these implementation updates provided in the PMA module would satisfy the requirements for reporting on PMA's implementation progress in annual reports, as is required by the regulations. So we don't want to have GSAs be making duplicative efforts, and we want to streamline the submission process for GSAs. So now that the implementation updates will be required to be submitted electronically in the PMA module, we will no longer need GSAs to provide the same information in the annual report PDFs. If your GSA still wants to include PMA updates in your PDFs, in addition to including them in the PMA module, that's totally fine. You can continue doing that. However, you will need to provide the implementation updates in the PMA module going forward. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now we want to show you how to provide these implementation updates. And for the sake of time, I'm going to need to be somewhat brief with this, but we do have a step-by-step guide that is available that goes over everything I'm about to go over in more detail, which is in Chapter 5 of the Projects and Management Actions user manual for GSAs on the Sigma portal. And again, I'll send out a link at the end. So first, where do GSAs submit implementation updates? So they can be submitted in the PMA module at any time. And you will also have the option to submit the implementation updates within the annual reporting module during the submission of annual reports. And using the annual reporting module to submit your implementation updates still does submit them to the PMA module, but it's just available to be submitted through the annual reporting module for convenience. So regardless of where you provide your implementation update, the update will always be saved in the PMA module on a specific PMA. There are also two methods to submit implementation updates. You can either submit an individual implementation update to a single PMA at a time, or you can batch import updates to multiple PMAs simultaneously using a pre-filled batch import spreadsheet. And this batch import process is really similar to our existing process that many of you are familiar with in the M&M, which is like submitting batch groundwater level readings to groundwater wells. Next slide. So this slide here is just showing the process of submitting an individual update to a PMA. So if you choose to do it within the PMA module, you would just go to the PMA page, go to section H, and then click New Implementation Update. It will open a form like the one that's shown here on the right, and you just record your answers in the form and save it, and that's it. You submitted your implementation update. So within the annual reporting module, this same form is going to be available. So I know the picture is a bit small, but basically you'll be able to see a summary of PMAs in your basin that's just automatically loaded in. And then on this table, you'll be able to click a button to open and submit an implementation updates form for each PMA that looks exactly like this form here. And yeah, we can go to the next slide. This slide here is just showing the batch implementation update process. So you could do this on the PMA module. It will prompt you to download a pre-filled spreadsheet, which just means that it has some information already on it for you. So you'll have your basins PMAs on it with the name, GSA, GSP fields filled out. So all you need to do is fill out the required fields on the spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet fields are the same as the form fields I showed on the previous slide. And then once you're done filling it out, you just upload the completed spreadsheet onto the PMA module, and it will submit all of the implementation updates to the multiple PMAs simultaneously. And this process is the exact same in the annual reporting module. Next slide. So I know we're running up on time here. So basically, regardless of the method you choose to provide the implementation updates in, the implementation updates will all be saved to the PMAs in the module or PMA module. So when logged in as the GSA, you can always access your implementation updates by going to the PMA page, and they'll appear sequentially. The public will also be able to view them in a very similar format. So, eventually over time, the PMAs will appear somewhat like this screenshot here, which shows the progress that has been made on this particular example PMA every year. So when read in this format, I can tell the story of how the PMA has been implemented over time. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so I know we've gone through a lot today, but I have a couple closing remarks before we go. The PMA module was created to provide multiple applications and benefits, which we hope that both GSAs and the public can utilize and find helpful during implementation. First and foremost, we wanted it to be a centralized way to track PMA progress and priority over time. So, once we start receiving implementation updates every year, the PMA module will be a statewide database showing the progress on all of the GSA's PMAs statewide. And this will, show the story of which PMAs are moving forward in our state and how they have moved forward over time, all reported in one place. And so we also intended for it to be a communication tool for the GSAs. So the PMA module can help to outreach to your community as a way to point stakeholders towards the progress on PMAs in one centralized place. And it's also something that can be used as a communication tool between the GSAs. So if you're working on like a certain type of project and you maybe want more information from other agencies about a similar project, you can use the PMA module to find other PMAs from other agencies and reach out to them. Next slide. All right, last slide before we go. We do have resources available to help GSAs as well as the public navigate the module. So everything I've gone over today is contained on the Sigma Portal's resources page on the Projects and Management Actions module section. So you just scroll down to it and you'll find all the documents right there. There's a GSA specific user manual, which goes over like submission processes, and then there's the public side instructions manual. Please feel free to direct any questions to our sgmps@water.ca.gov email, and it'll get forwarded to the best person to help you. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for having me today, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that presentation, Rihanna. So we're about to move into another conversation with a GSA, similar to our previous session, but this time we'll be focusing on projects and management actions. So to moderate that conversation, I will introduce Erin Crandall from DWR. You can take it away, Erin.
Great. Thank you, Atlee. Good morning, everyone. I agree. That was a great presentation. Looks like we've got some feedback in the chat about the PMA module, so that's exciting to see. And I think this next segment will be a great way to see how some PMAs are being put into action in some subbasins. So my name is Erin Crandall. I'm a supervising water resources engineer in DWR's Sustainable Groundwater Management Office. And I co-lead our outreach and engagement section with Heather Shannon, who you got to hear from earlier. Today, I have the privilege of talking with Lacey McBride, who represents the Merced Subbasin GSA. Lacey is the Merced County Water Resources Manager, and she coordinates and manages the county's Sigma implementation across all 4 subbasins in Merced County. So Lacey, it's great to have you with us. Good morning to you. And if you're ready, we can jump into things so we can hear from you about your GSA.
Good morning. Thanks. Let's go.
Okay. All right. So first question is your involvement in your GSA. I know you have a ton of experience. How long have you been involved with your GSA?
Yeah, thanks. So for the past almost 10 years, I've been with Merced County as the water resources manager and helping implement SGMA and the county's responsibilities for SGMA over 4 basins. That's 7 GSAs where the county has those unincorporated out of the district areas. There's actually 17 GSAs in the whole county, so there's a lot of coordination going along. And we have really good a mix of basins. We've got 2 that were in state intervention. One moved back over to DWR, Chowchilla, Delta Mendota, hopefully on the way out as well. And then we have the Turlock Basin and the Merced Basin, which both have approved GSP. And so the largest basin in the county is the Merced Basin. It's pretty much fully within Merced County, and I've been working with the Merced Subbasin GSA since the beginning in 2016. And I provide the staff support through the county to the Merced Subbasin GSA. So I'll focus on that GSA for the rest of this conversation.
That's a great way to set us up. And Lacey, you have so much wonderful experience, so I'm really looking forward to our conversation. What are a few of the PMAs that you're currently working to implement, and how did your GSA decide which PMAs to prioritize with all that's going on?
Yeah, so the most significant management action for the Merced Subbasin GSA is actually going to be demand management. It's a groundwater allocation rule that they adopted in late 2024. It becomes effective in January 2026. They're also working on like multi-benefit land repurposing, so incentive programs. Early on, the Merced Subbasin GSA recognized that the magnitude of groundwater consumption reduction that they were facing, which is about 150, it was more than the available surface water for that GSA. So bringing in surface water wasn't going to meet the reduction that they were going to have to do. They were going to have demand reduction. And so they're doing this through kind of adaptive management, right? They're including a combination of incentive supply side projects like through MLRP and encouraging recharge, and then also implementing this demand reduction policy. The GSA really strongly encourages through the allocation rule kind of recharge and the use of alternative sources of water. But the main program that's going to drive change and sustainability in the GSA is going to be that groundwater allocation rule that becomes effective in January of 2026.
A lot of factors that go into these decisions, I know. So thank you for highlighting that. And knowing that communication and engagement is key in developing and implementing your PMAs, does your agency or your interested parties group in in the subbasin seem to be experiencing? We've been hearing about implementation fatigue, 10 years in. So has your agency identified strategies to avoid folks having this feeling? Can you talk to that?
Yeah, I think there is a little bit of implementation fatigue. I do see like participation in workshops. It's, maybe not as robust as I would hope it would be. I think in the Merced Subbasin GSA, it also might be a little bit of like hurry up and wait. And so the GSA has been very deliberate about developing their allocation rule. They intentionally had started like a 2-phased approach where they, for GSP implementation, where they started with some voluntary land repurposing to get some of those early reductions in groundwater consumption, and basically buy some time while they develop the allocation. So they've taken their time because they want to be careful and thoughtful about the development of this allocation rule that's really going to reduce groundwater consumption by quite a lot in the GSA. And so I think that may have led to this idea that the allocation is always coming soon. Like it's coming soon, just kind of wait a moment. We've tried to bring folks along so there isn't a sudden, it's 2026 and now you're under a groundwater allocation kind of change for them. So we've offered them a way to compare their historic use against what their allocation will be in 2026. And so we're a part of the groundwater accounting platform. And in 2024 and in 2025, there's been a push to get folks logged onto the platform, claiming their water accounts, and also getting an early understanding of what their individual change might have to be. And so I think that engagement has also helped kind of bring folks along as the policy itself is was being determined. The platform really has been, the groundwater accounting platform has been a great tool to help get growers aware of their own consumption, of their water budgets, and also helping keep them engaged in this process, facing an allocation starting in January, which is coming up soon.
That's great. Yeah, I think having folks, like you said, bringing them along throughout the process, it seems to be such a key component to engaging with people and getting them on board, like you said. So in addition to working with the public and interested parties, how have you also engaged other parties and local agencies to support the subbasin?
Yeah, so I think we've been really lucky to be a part of the platform and having those partnerships and collaborations with other GSAs who are working on that. That's been great places for like discussion about kind of best practices in using that accounting tool. Our local agencies that are member agencies within the GSA, so the Merced Subbasin GSA, the JPA, we've got a handful of local agencies. They really have just been instrumental in outreach and feedback associated with like developing the allocation or with multi-benefit land repurposing and that kind of advocacy for MLRP. Outreach has been a huge challenge. I think everybody might agree with that. But having that trusted district reach out to growers usually gets a better response than just having the GSA reach out. And so that's been really helpful in making sure that our local districts are they're kind of in lockstep in the conversations and the outreach that we're having. The unincorporated out of the district areas, that outreach is still really, really challenging. And then I wanted to mention that MLRP has put us in peer groups with other GSAs and like the state support entities who are implementing MLRP projects. And those conversations have been great. It's interesting to see how some of the like incentive programs that other GSAs have, how that could exist outside of MLRP and how those supply side kind of incentive programs might align well with the GSA's demand management.
That's great. Yeah, get the full picture there. So, Lacey, we have time for one more question, which I think will set us up nicely for our next breakout. So where do you see opportunity in achieving those multiple benefits with your PMAs? Are there other programs or initiatives? You've mentioned some already, but anything you haven't touched on that you and your partners are pursuing or that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, I think the coordination between it's a tough thing to right for a GSA to put in place, but I think that's going to drive the groundwater use down to the sustainable level. But then the other opportunities, like through MLRP, to change the land use to a lower water consuming land use, but not just fallow. Like we don't want a basin that's just got a bunch of fallow land. That's hopefully where we're going to see kind of those benefits. So providing options to growers to maintain their agricultural productivity on some of their land, but also reducing consumption and having multiple benefits to recharge basins that are incentivized in the allocation rule or habitat restoration through MLRP that might be along our wildlife corridor. Hopefully that will be recognized as those good opportunities by the growers. I think that is yet to be seen, to see how they're going to take advantage of those opportunities. They've been available in this GSA, but the allocation hasn't been in place. And so those incentive programs have been undersubscribed, which I think has been really interesting to see. And so now we're entering this different kind of era, right, with an allocation being in place. And we're taking more advantage of those now. I guess the only other thing that I would want to mention that we're interested in is continue taking advantage of programs like MLRP, but also maybe LandFlex. So if LandFlex continues to be an option in the future, that's something that the Merced Subbasin GSA would be interested in too.
Well, great. Lacey, thank you so much for sharing your experience and what's going on in your neck of the woods. It was so great to hear how Merced County and its partnering agencies are working together to develop and implement these PMAs and like you said, bring folks along throughout the process. So I think this has been a good discussion to get us ready for our breakout. So I can turn it back to Atlee, but just want to thank you again, Lacey, for sharing today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erin and Lacey, for that conversation. And we'll be building on everything that you were talking about in regards to projects and management actions in regard to GSAs in breakouts again. So this is the second breakout session, and we'll be doing something very similar. You will join if you are a GSA staff, board member, or technical consultant working directly with a GSA. You will pick one of the now 6 GSA groups. If you joined, whatever number you joined last time, try joining a different number this time. We saw a lot of folks went into that first group, so maybe switch it up so that we can hear, you can all hear from some new voices. Now, if you're an interested party, a community member, an NGO, or a technical consultant not working directly with GSAs right now, you can join that interested parties group again, and we have specific questions that we want to hear your input on. So again, you go to the toolbar, select breakouts, and choose one of those 6 GSA breakouts if you're a GSA, and the interested party breakout if you are an interested party. If you have a hard time finding one of the breakouts, especially for the interested party one, you will have to scroll down a bit. And we see folks moving into that. If you're having any issues joining those breakout rooms, feel free to type in the chat. And for those of you who are unable to join a room or are taking a break, we will come back here at 11. Welcome back, everyone, from our break. So to preview the remainder of the forum, we'll next have a presentation on periodic evaluations and annual reporting from DWR, followed by a question and answer session. And then we'll hand it over to Paul Gosselin to provide insight into some of the resources, tools, and opportunities that DW has for the next phase of Sigma implementation before we close out today's event. So at this time, I will hand it over to Monica Salias, who will provide us with a presentation on periodic evaluations. Monica will then be joined by her colleague, Ben Gooding, who will talk about annual reports.
Good morning. Thanks, Atlee. Again, Monica Salias here, and just wanted to welcome everyone and look forward to giving this presentation and answering some questions at the end. Next slide, please. Thank you. So before I go too deep, I wanted to kind of set the stage with a revisit of terminology that you'll hear me using and throughout our future engagement, we'll be referring to periodic evaluations and periodic reviews. So a periodic evaluation is to be completed by the GSAs with approved GSPs. And this is to be done at least every 5 years after initial GSP submittal. A periodic review is conducted by the department. And so that is the activity in which we look at an existing GSP or amendment, if that's included, annual reports, and that periodic evaluation. So we are conducting a periodic review to essentially look into whether or not a basin continues to be on track to reaching their sustainability goal. We do this at least every 5 years as well, after the initial GSP submittal, and it does result in a new determination, whether it be approved, incomplete, or inadequate. For those that want to look at the water code or the GSP regulations, I have included the section numbers here on this slide. And one thing to keep in mind is that if a periodic evaluation is not submitted by an agency, the department still does initiate our periodic review so that we maintain consistency with our requirements for ourselves, or I should say SGMA's requirements on us. And so in the absence of the submittal of a periodic evaluation, the department would look to the existing GSP and annual reports that have been submitted to date. So that's just something to keep in mind, that without a periodic evaluation, it would make the department's role of conducting a periodic review a little more difficult to understand whether a basin is still on track to meeting reaching that sustainability goal. Next slide. Thank you. So this is a summary slide of where we're at and what we're expecting. Right now, we have 15 basins under periodic review. We anticipate by January 1st, 2027 to receive periodic evaluations from 10 basins with alternatives. By the end of January 2027, we expect 62 basins to submit periodic evaluations. And then we do have a few basins on some later dates. So by, let's see, between June 29th, 2027 and February 13th, 2029, we'll expect 4 additional basins to be submitting periodic evaluations. And as I mentioned, this is what we anticipate, but regardless, we will be starting those periodic reviews for those basins. And reviews can take up to 2 years for us to complete, but we do work really diligently to complete our reviews sooner than that time. And upon submittal, agencies can submit a periodic evaluation or a periodic evaluation and an amendment. So if a basin is in a situation where they determine that an amendment is needed, please do count on submitting a periodic evaluation with that amendment. And I'll touch a little bit more on those details. And all of these submittals should be submitted to the SGMA portal. Next slide, please. So what exactly is a periodic evaluation? So we look to a periodic evaluation as a method for a GSA to explain how GSP implementation is going, what progress is being made within the basin. Something to keep in mind is that it's always a good approach to be able to explain the good, the bad, and the ugly. We know that SGMA is a 20-year timeline. For some basins, we're already 5 years into that. And so it is really important for this periodic evaluation to cover what is the status of your groundwater conditions in the past 5 years, given the implementation of your plan. we want to understand how your it's essentially like a self-evaluation. Are you making progress towards meeting your interim milestones and measurable objectives? And this would include all of the sustainability indicators. And so making sure that it is really clear to the reviewer of a periodic evaluation, and even the public and those within your basin. This document does assist in articulating what progress is being made. Any advancement of project and management actions and associated cumulative benefits is really important for articulating how you are making progress on groundwater management. Being able to explain how those cumulative benefits are contributing to the basin achieving that sustainability goal, and how whether or not the basin is operating within its sustainable yield. I think it's easy for folks, right? They to explain all the good things that they're doing, and I think part of articulating this kind of progress is also being able to describe any unforeseen challenges and whether you're encountering any issues with the development or implementation of any of those project and management actions, and the outcome or response to any challenges that you might be encountering. So this is where kind of that transparency and kind of being able to describe, the bad or the ugly, to just put it simply, how are you pivoting from those that information that you're receiving or issues that you're encountering within the basin? And that's where implementation of adaptive management comes into play, and being able to articulate a scenario where you can either expedite a project or management action, or perhaps you're considering an amendment to shift management in a different direction. None of that is a deal breaker in the eyes of DWR, but it's really important for us to understand how are you making these changes, and then still complying with SGMA and the GSP regulations. One thing that has come up in question is, well, what if a basin is experiencing undesirable results? And this is where, again, the transparency is really important. What impact are you seeing to beneficial uses and users? Are PMAs being implemented to course correct? A full explanation of that situation and how the basin is managing that situation is very crucial in us understanding whether you're still on track. Again, it's not necessarily a deal breaker to say we're experiencing undesirable results, but this is how we are responding to that. That is, again, a very key component to us understanding what progress is being made. And of course, being able to to respond to those recommended corrective actions is important for us to understand the progress that you're making as well. Next slide, please. A frequent question that we do get is on, there we go. Lights turning off on me. Amendments. We do get frequent questions about amendments, and amendments are really at the discretion of a GSA. And so it's important that a GSA understand and be able to look to their plan and understand when groundwater management maybe need to be shifting. Of course, as a reminder, as I mentioned earlier, a periodic evaluation is required to accompany an amendment, and that purpose is to be able to articulate why these changes are necessary. Some considerations that you may want to think about when determining whether you want to do or need to do an amendment. Is management changing, and how is it changing? Conducting an amendment allows the GSA to formalize management changes to a GSP and ensure that a GSP is up to date for the basin's implementation. So this is also a manner to which you can engage interested parties and make sure that these changes are being communicated throughout the basin. If changes are made to sustainable management criteria, please keep in mind that you would still need to go through all the requirements of the GSP regulations when these changes are made. So, for example, if water level minimum thresholds are changed or an undesirable result is changed, it needs to be clear to us for what reasons. Why are your new metrics more valid and more reasonable than what was previously identified? Perhaps you have filled data gaps and you have new information that justifies those changes, but explaining that is very important. We would want to know how impacts to beneficial uses and users may be anticipated or impacts to other sustainability indicators. And so there is this domino effect. So as with the original GSP submission, we do want to see that these components are all thought through when making these changes. And just as a reminder, SIGMA is not about moving the goalpost, right? So this is why it's really important. Again, I'm gonna be really redundant here in this conversation today, but it's really to remind folks that making sure that your changes are clear, you have articulated any impacts to other indicators or beneficial uses and users, and understanding why the changes are necessary. And then something that occasionally comes up as well is, well, what kind of notification is required? Making sure that you follow the notice and communication section of your GSP is a good place to look to in terms of how you have articulated your GSA or GSAs will communicate throughout the basin when changes occur. So that's an important consideration to take into account. Next slide, please. So just a reminder, the cover letter of determinations have some important information in there. Not only who to contact with questions about that determination, but also it does contain the date of when we will start our periodic review. So if you're looking to understand, well, when should I submit a periodic evaluation? We would just expect it by that date. Again, that's the cover letter of that determination. That all determinations are posted on the SIGMA portal. You do not need an account to access those. Those are publicly available. And then to submit your periodic evaluation and an amendment, if there is one, you do need a SIGMA portal account. So that making sure that you have the appropriate authorizations to submit it is really important as well. Next slide, please. We do, from time to time, get questions about changing GSA point of contact. This POC is important to have updated. So anytime you have changes, please do do utilize the portal to reflect those changes, as the department does reach out to this person from time to time, and determinations are addressed to this person. So there is a way to do it and without reaching out to us. So users with a GSA permission can edit and feel free to screenshot this if you know you need to complete this step. But there is Section C and the GSA Formation and Contact tab of the GSA notice. You would select No for the do the modifications represent a material change to the information in the posted notice question that pops up. And then that from there, you can change that point of contact. And as a reminder, the new point of contact must have a Sigma portal account to complete that. And then, of course, if you have any questions, we can be reached for Sigma portal questions at gspsubmittal@water.ca.gov. Next slide, please. So we do have resources available to assist with the preparation of a periodic evaluation and annual reports and plan amendments. And so one of the, and I have it here, this is this picture of that cover. You can access this guidance document on our website on the Best Management Practices and Guidance Document page, and there is a tab for guidance documents. And if you scroll down about midway in the page, there is this document and frequently asked questions. There is an annotated outline available within this document. And so that is one way in which efficiency can be gained. We have provided an annotated outline to help that structure. And, we have received questions about, well, how can I make this more efficient? Utilizing that annotated outline is one approach to adding efficiency to this process. Next slide, please. So as Rihanna covered earlier, the Project and Management Action tool, this is a resource that can be leveraged for the periodic evaluation as well. So making sure those project and management actions are updated with most recent information is a great way to add efficiency. The PMA tool does have that output feature, which can be utilized to share project information with stakeholders, the public, anyone in the basin, including your periodic evaluation. So this is another great way to add efficiency to your the preparation of your periodic evaluation, and even amendments if you do make changes to your project and management actions. Don't forget about this tool. This could be really helpful. Next slide, please. Another available resource, just a reminder that we do also have the hydrograph export tool in the monitoring network module. Once you log in, this would require a login, and you go to the monitoring network module. There on that dashboard, there is a hydrograph export button. From that button, it takes you to that window on the other side of that arrow, and you can set up your time frame that you would like to export some hydrographs. And so this is another way to utilize a DWR provided tool for efficiency. So I do also recommend the utilization of this tool. Next slide, please. And then there's also the option of reaching out to DWR. So I have provided here on our website, as well as each regional office has point of contacts for each basin. So depending on what region you are, you can click on links, and I believe someone might be dropping those into the chat for accessing that list. But you can reach out to your point of contact. And you can also reach out to SIGMO at sgmps@water.ce.gov. And so we are available to provide assistance should questions arise. And if you specifically have questions about the SIGMA portal, reach out to us at gspsubmittal@water.ce.gov. Next slide, please. And I think from here, I'll pass it off to Ben, and then I'll be on the line for questions afterwards. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. For Monica, sorry. Yeah, so really today I'm going to be going over some updates that are going to be coming in the future to the annual reports, but also the SIGMA portal in general. And these will be pretty brief updates because they're kind of early in the development process, but these will be good. So these are updates that are expected to be coming in 2026 and 2027. Like I said, we're in the early stages of development, and sort of a release timeline is not finalized. Estimated, I would say that these wouldn't be released until Q3 or Q4 of 2026, and potentially later. But these changes will include the development and modification of both new functionality and modifications of existing functionality. And these updates will impact the GSP reporting system, the annual reporting module, the monitoring network module, and potentially other aspects of the portal. If you want to go to the next slide. So what's some of the new functionality? This is going to primarily include the ability to start to collect additional information related to GSPs. And currently, the plans will be to collect the sustainable yield data, management area boundaries, sustainability goal definition, undesirable result definitions for all of the sustainability indicators, interim milestones, measurable objectives, and minimum thresholds for additional sustainability indicators. And so on that one, currently we collect that for the chronic lowering of groundwater levels on the M&M. But we expect to develop the ability to start to collect the other sustainable management criteria, likely for land subsidence, change in storage, and seawater intrusion. Potentially the other two, water quality and interconnected surface waters, but those likely aren't expected. So you will likely see the addition of the ability to collect data on the other three. And how this information will be collected isn't finalized yet, but it's likely going to be a combination of information submitted to the GSP reporting system, the annual reporting system, and the monitoring module. And then if you want to go to the next slide. And so then one of the big changes will be updating the submission process for annual reports. We expect that these updates will be available in mid to late 2026. So this wouldn't affect anything on the annual reports being submitted in April of 2026. However, agencies will be required to submit their water year 2026 annual reports by the due date of April 1st, 2027. And so, again, this is in the early development process, so it's not fully finalized or have anything to show. But the idea is that it's going to eliminate basically the requirement to submit a PDF annual report like currently does, and start to collect more of that information directly via the portal. And it's also going to aim to sort of streamline development by ensuring agencies focus on GSP implementation progress. And so what I mean by that is it's primarily going to focus on whether the basin experienced any interim milestone or minimum threshold exceedances, or whether there's any undesirable results presence. And basically, if either of those conditions sort of occur, then it's going to require sort of a discussion about whether those exceedances or the presence of an undesirable results is having an impact on the basin's ability to meet its sustainability goal and what it's doing to mitigate these conditions. And then also a lot of sections of the annual report will be auto-populated based on data already available in the Sigma portal. And so that will be based on some of that additional information that we would now be able to collect on the last slide, but also the information that's already submitted to, say, the monitoring module, and being able to, automatically determine whether there are any interim milestone and minimum threshold exceedances and the required responses to that. So it aims to really streamline and automate where it can. And then also the portal will then, or the new process will create certain required figures. Not all of them, but ones that we have the data for. So like primarily the figures that are required related to groundwater, surface water, and total water use. The portal can automatically make those, but some of the other ones, such as the groundwater level contour maps, those would still be required, but it's still being worked out, and some more additional information will be available in the future. And then, like I said, compile monitoring data and quantify some SMC exceedances. But again, we're really early in the development process on this, and so a lot more information will become available in the coming months. And when those are ready, I'm sure we'll have additional meetings to provide everyone details and answer questions on that in the future. And that's it for me.
Thanks so much, Ben, and thank you, Monica. And a reminder for everyone, since that was a lot of information from both Monica and Ben, this presentation is being recorded and will be made publicly available. So you'll get access to all of that. Additionally, all of these links and resources that are shared in the chat will be compiled into a resource list for you all. So at this time, we're going to open it up to questions for Monica or Ben. So I want to first walk you through this Q&A feature that we've turned on. So on your toolbar now, you should see the Q&A option. If you don't see it, you can either expand your toolbar or go to the More option, and it should pop up there. We do ask that you use this Q&A feature instead of the chat when you are asking your questions for Monica. And the reason is that you will be able to comment and upvote on questions that you also have in the chat. So then we can organize by what questions are most prevalent. And if you have questions from speakers earlier in the forum, we do ask that you use the resources, use the emails that we provided in the chat in order to reach out to them. And this Q&A session will be primarily focused on the periodic evaluation and annual reporting discussion. I do see a question in the chat just about where the links and resources will be. So all links will be compiled into a resource directory that will be shared out to attendees after the event. And then the recording from this will be uploaded onto DWR's website. So while you are testing out that Q&A feature and typing your questions into the chat, I will get us started with a question for you, Monica, that we often hear from GSAs, which is around public engagement and what level of public engagement is needed for the periodic evaluation process.
Thanks. Yeah, so public engagement, and I touched on this a little earlier, but it's really good to cover in more detail for those out there. In a GSP, in the administrative information chapter, there is a notice and communication section. And so in that section, a GSA would have articulated how they intend to engage with folks within the basin, whether it be beneficial users or stakeholders or whatnot. There should be a manner in which the GSA is committed to engaging. And so it's important to reference back to your GSP and essentially do what you said you're going to do, right? This is how you have laid out your process, and so this is where you would implement that process that you've laid out, whether for the various documents that you'll be preparing or changes that you're making to project and management actions. But really, that's your guide for how to conduct that engagement. On Sigma side and GSP regulations, there are details about engagement and public comment periods related to the development of a GSP. There are requirements related to if you do an amendment, how things that you need to do. But aside from that, it's really on the GSA to carry out the engagement that they have also articulated in their GSP.
Thanks for that, Monica. And there's a question about annual reporting and periodic updates within the same year. Is there any guidance for GSAs and how to approach that, or the reasoning behind the two separate reporting processes?
Yeah, we are aware, and we have heard this from folks in the past as well. It is something that is articulated in the regulations and the law, and so our hands are tied on that. The department doesn't have the ability to release GSAs of those requirements. A periodic evaluation, again, can be looked at as a self-reflection, self-progress report kind of mindset. And then the annual report is a more data-focused effort. As Ben articulated, we are trying to make some efficiency changes to how we can better assist agencies in meeting that requirement. But there's still that the requirements that are part of Sigma, we don't have the ability to release GSAs of those obligations. An annual report is also coming through for the previous water year, and so there is the need to collect that data and collect that information. But we do. That is something under consideration, and maybe in the future we will see some alignment there or some changes. But at the moment, we don't have the ability to release GSAs of those requirements.
Thanks for that insight, Monica. We have another question about the updated annual report process. Will there still be an opportunity to provide narrative to summarize basin status to accompany data that is automatically transferred over from the MNM?
We're still in the very early development of this process. We're again trying to make it certain steps more efficient, but we will definitely be taking this feedback into consideration. And so if folks would like to provide feedback, we're more than open to receiving that kind of information from you.
And I do encourage you all to type your questions in the Q&A feature. I'm sure you are not the only one who has that question, whatever it may be. This is the opportunity to get that clarification. I know it's a lot of information that we just received, but I think it's important for us to continue processing it. So with that being said, Monica, can you just repeat, I know you mentioned it, but if a basin is experiencing undesirable results, can you remind us of what your next steps or the recommendations are?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I want to say that it's not a deal breaker, but we would need, if a basin is experiencing undesirable results, beneficial uses and users are being impacted, being able to convey to us how you're handling that situation, what project and managements are being implemented, our timelines being expedited. being able to demonstrate that you are making progress and you are adapting to that situation is very important. Again, we know that Sigma is more is a bit of a long game, right? To reaching that sustainability goal. But we need to see progress, right? We can't just wait till the very end to then pivot. So it's important for us to understand, you acknowledge and understand that you are experiencing these undesirable results, but these are the steps you're taking to address those or to change management within the basin to get back on track.
And then very basic question, can you remind us all where to go to submit either that periodic evaluation or GSP amendment?
Yes, the Sigma portal is is where everything gets submitted for to the department. So annual reports are uploaded there, periodic evaluations, GSPs, public comments. If you have public comments on any of the documents that get submitted to the department, those are always posted to the Sigma portal for transparency purposes. It is at the discretion of a GSA to respond to them. It's not required. Those are really public comments to the department as we are going to do our reviews of those documents. From time to time, a GSA does want to respond to those, and your GSAs are also welcome to post to the public comment, respond to any public comment on the portal. The PMA tool is on there, so we really try to make it the Sigma portal kind of a one-stop shop for all documents coming to us.
And then a question regarding, is there a way when a basin becomes sustainable, is there a way to get out of Sigma?
Right now, yeah. So, Sigma does have that 20-year requirement. So when that time comes, we will make assessment. But I don't know that I would ever characterize it as a way out of Sigma. Even those basins that are sustainable under an alternative, there's still requirements there. So it's not at this time the way the law is written. There's not really an exit path. It's just maintaining sustainability. But what that looks like beyond 2040, I think, is a little early for us to have that conversation.
One more question we have is speaking to this is a specific situation, but I know it's not isolated situation. Can you say more about how periodic evaluation should address recommended corrective actions and how DWR will review them?
Yeah, I'm reading it here as well. We would like to see how an agency is addressing those recommended corrective actions. And in some cases where it may take more time, I think it's important to lay out how are you approaching that? We shouldn't be seeing just a disregard of a recommended corrective action, but in terms of, are you making progress? At the end of the day, we want to make sure that agencies are moving the needle on managing groundwater. And the periodic evaluation is the tool to convey that information to us. And if it's not, I think we all get tied up in kind of the documents we prepare. I think it's, if you haven't done this before, highly recommend it. But having someone else read that document to make sure you're conveying the information you want to be conveying. When we're down in the weeds on our own documents, we can sometimes lose sight of what we're trying to convey. And taking that step back, maybe having an outside rater take a look at it and make sure that that takeaway message is clear. So that's our approach to kind of how we're going to review it, is understanding the progress being made and the changes that are being made to address those RCAs.
And I'm not sure if this question is something you can answer, Monica, but Richard asks, for undesirable results, the My Dry Well website provides a listing of the entries from the public. Is there an option to have a resolution column to see when it's a pump failure or a dry well, or when the issue has been resolved and there's a new well has been constructed? I'm not sure if that's something that's been visited.
Yeah, this one, we can get back to Richard on this. I would need to kind of do reach out to the person that manages this to be able to provide information here.
Well, thank you so much, Monica, for answering all those questions. We really appreciate it. And Monica did share those 2 emails in the chat. If you have any questions, both the sgmps@water.ca.gov email, as well as the GSP submittal@water.ca.gov. And then that guidance document for GSP implementation is also extremely helpful with the accompanying FAQ. So highly encourage you to dig into that and then utilize this recording also as a resource. Thank you, Monica.
Thanks, everybody.
So we are about to go into our lunchtime session. While you grab your lunch, we have another quick polling activity. So when you get a moment, go ahead and click on the link that is in the chat being shared right now. And from that polling activity, you'll be sharing ways in which DWR can help connect you with other GSAs. It's good information to be aware of and to understand as we utilize the GSA forums as an opportunity to connect with one another. And while you are doing that, I'm going to pass it over to Paul Goslin, Deputy Director for Sustainable Water Management, to talk about DWR's resources, tools, and opportunities as we continue on with SGMA implementation.
All right. Still good morning. It's great to see everyone's faces here today. Haha. I think it was all experience. The first 10 to 12 years, we've seen enormous progress and challenges implementing SGMA, but I don't think, just thinking about back in January of 2015, I don't think anyone would have envisioned where we would be here today. Most importantly, the progress and commitment that you all and others have made towards groundwater sustainability has really far exceeded anyone's expectations. It's kind of quite amazing, but a lot more work lies ahead, and I'm going to talk a little bit more in the near term. But as we look in the next 10 years, I think you'll all be able to look back on the continued progress and think at this moment and really wonder sort of like the amazing progress that's going to occur over the next decade towards groundwater sustainability. So really want to thank you all for the commitment towards this, and really excited about the future, and absolutely encouraged about the success that SGMA is going to bring to the table. So next slide. So, a couple updates. I'm going to talk about the subsidence best management practice document, depletion of interconnected surface water guidance document, Bulletin 118, and just a couple reminders of services and Prop 4. So we can go to the next slide. So the subsidence best management practice document, we released that in July of 2025. And, best management practice documents are at a somewhat higher level than guidance documents. They can lead towards regulations, and they do have a process that involves having 3 statewide workshops and presentation to the California Water Commission. Subsidence is one of the indicators that we did find in review of plans that many basins, particularly those that had had historic subsidence occurring, really didn't meet the mark. And we also found that there was some new areas that had newly emerging subsidence occurring. And so it really seemed that guidance was necessary to really understand the causes of subsidence, the science behind it, and sort of the expectations of what's required under the law and regulations to manage and address it. And thinking back to 2014, when the law was starting to get enacted, the two main drivers that caused the law to get enacted, one was the drought and the really proliferation of dry wells that were occurring, as well as subsidence. The two, real bad outcomes of, poor groundwater management that were exacerbated by drought conditions. So subsidence is critically important to get a handle on, and we've seen, as we've seen through drought years and even non-drought years, the rates of subsidence in many areas has continued. One problem with subsidence, unlike a lot of other indicators, that even at the point of arresting it and minimizing it, it's still the effects are going to linger for many years into the future. So unlike addressing some other undesirable results, this is going to linger. And we're talking about billions of dollars of state and federal dollars and local dollars to just keep pace with the current impacts, as well as the cost and as well as the impacts of loss of water supply, surface water supplies, that is really going to exacerbate groundwater pumping. So it's really important that we get a handle on this as quickly as possible. So we did get a number of public comments at the public meetings, as well as people submitted comments in. We're reviewing those, and we're looking to have the subsidence best management practice document we're targeting by the end of the year, but we're really going to take the time and do our due diligence to make sure we go through the comments and make sure this document is clear, it's understandable, and it reflects what's in the law, the regulations, and it's really understandable for groundwater sustainability agencies and our staff for what's required and expected under the law to minimize and avoid subsidence. We'll be working with the state board on implementing the BMP in the first quarter of 2026, working with local agencies, particularly those who've had subsidence, to probably on a regional basis and provide some assistance and some indication about implementation pathways, because we really need a good indication about the steps that need to be taken to really handle this, and it really is going to need to be a regional basis. So we are going to work shoulder to shoulder with basins, to kind of move this along. So next slide, please. Another important indicator, depletion of interconnected surface water. And this is going to be a guidance document. And this was built upon some technical documents that were produced. We had guidance papers 1, 2, and 3, and this was the scientific foundation of depletion of interconnected surface water. And now we're taking those scientific principles and putting it through the lens of what the law calls for and the regulations, and a level of practicality, knowing we're in midstream of, pardon the pun, on implementation of groundwater sustainability plans. And, again, this was a very important indicator. It was a new facet for water managers. I think it was pretty well recognized that, this is an important facet of groundwater pumping about depletion of interconnected surface water. But the methodology on measuring it and managing it was not really well established. So it was taking some time to get this together. It's fairly complicated. So we are looking to get this done again by the end of the year. This is something we're going to work with agencies on implementation. So we are going to be reaching out once this comes out to work with local agencies on implementation. But we do recognize this is going to be complicated, and we are going to be looking to work with you on this. So again, probably by the end of the year, maybe the first quarter of 2026. Again, we want to make sure we get this done right and have it done clearly and understandable. But we do recognize, this is complicated. And we do have materials available on the webinar from 2024 that is also referenced. So we can go to the next slide, please. Yes, Bulletin 118, that's out for release. You probably got the draft, and this is, probably the most important reference document. It is the cornerstone of information on California's groundwater. And over the recent years, it's one of the things that has been done in the past. We've waited every 5 years to have California Bulletin 118 come out. But since then, through a lot of great work by the SIGMO team, we have a lot of information that comes out sooner. We have the semi-periodic groundwater evaluation report that comes out every 6 months with analysis, as well as California Groundwater Live. But Bulletin 118 is a very important document to compile all that information, as well as regional updates and policy discussions. There was a change with a lot of the other information that's coming out more recently. There's a switch. We're going to come out with Bulletin 118 every 10 years, but right now it's out in draft form. The comment period ends on December 5th, so please take a look at Bulletin 118 and provide any thoughts and comments in on that. We are looking to have the final release in the spring of 2026. Again, it is the reference document on California's groundwater. So I invite you all to take a look at that and to comment. Next slide, please. Yes, and don't forget other resources that we have. And this is also important. Besides the oversight role and providing, regulations and other things on navigating what the requirements of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act has, really at our heart is resources and services, because, we do really at our heart have a vested interest in making sure that local agencies, GSAs, are successful in carrying forward, the responsibilities of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. So data and tools are really paramount on this. We do have basic characterization exchange meeting. There's other data and other information that is really available. And so these are strengths in having you be able to manage your basin. So next slide, please. And this leads into other support services, facilitation support. And this really has helped a lot of basins, in a whole range of things, both internally, if you're dealing with, meetings with, community groups or others on different topics or governance or even interbasin issues. This is a real good neutral third party to be able to help navigate that. It frees you up for not having to run meetings and facilitate discussions and really engage in those sometimes very sensitive dialogues. So it helps the process go on. It's something you can again apply for. Go to the portal and put your application in, and we'll work with you on getting a task order. And it really helps the process out. It helps with outreach and engagement and a whole range of things. So if you have any questions about things that you may be struggling with, that you may need support on, feel free to reach out and tap into facilitation support services. So next slide, please. Yes, and again, trying to advance outreach and engagement. A lot of it, can be barriers with, language barriers. So written translation services has been around for many years. So again, a reminder, please feel free to contact us if you need written translation. I think we have 8+ languages, maybe more. I haven't tracked that. So, but we've also started a year or two ago verbal translation services, and this has been very helpful to include a lot of people where English may not be their first language. So, again, bringing and broadening your involvement for community members is really paramount. It's been, one of the foundation elements of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act is to involve and include the community. So again, take part, involve, written translation services and verbal translation services in your meetings and materials. And it's, again, these are available for you to tap into and use, and we invite you participation in that. Next, please. And again, I'll leave you all on a happy note. Well, less happy with Prop 4. It's not enough money, I think, for what we need, but we are going to, try to make the most of it. And I just wanted to highlight some of the areas that we're going to be managing. There's the CalCIP program, the stream gauging program. We have 15 million for us. The water board has 5 of the 15 million, so we have $10 million. IRWM, watershed climate resiliency, there'll be 162 million on that. The Department of Conservation has 200 million for multi-benefit land repurposing program, and that's going to continue that program that's been very successful in a number of basins on the land transition, and we've started to see, that started to really pick up on the loss of ag land, and so this is going to be very important for a lot of communities. The Wildlife Conservation Board has a sizable amount of money for a variety of different projects. But then the Sustainable Groundwater Program has, just under $386 million. Again, I think the last time we had a solicitation out, we had about $187 million. I think the request came in at roughly about $800 million. So 386 is a good amount of money, but obviously not enough, for what the need is. So, we're going to, get guidelines out and regulations and hopefully get this put to good use. So stay tuned. We'll be doing some scoping for these grants, competitive grant programs next year. We one twist we got in the legislature, we typically get an exemption from having to do regulations for the process of administering the program, but they did not give us that. They gave us emergency regulations, which we have never done before. So we're trying to navigate a new regulatory process for the grant program. So it potentially is going to maybe add on another year delay on getting it out the door, but we're trying to work with the Office of Administrative Law to try to see what we can do to keep this under the regular track of getting the solicitation for these grants out the door, because we know there's a dire need to get the money out the door so you can get projects going and stay on your path towards sustainability. So with that, I'll go to the next slide, and I think we can put the wraps on this. I know everyone's hungry for lunch, and we'll turn the closing over to Atlee. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. So as we are wrapping up today's GSA forum, we do request that you provide your input in an exit survey that we have in the chat now. We do use that input that you share for both future forums, and then DWR also utilizes it when developing resources to support you all with Sigma implementation. Just a few announcements, a reminder that we will be sharing the resources in a resource list. So everything that's been mentioned today will be shared out to all participants shortly. We will also be sharing the participant directory for those of you who opted into that when you did your registration. And lastly, the event recording will be uploaded in the coming weeks. As always, if you have any questions, you can contact sgmps@water.ca.gov. And I want to thank you all for your participation. Thank you to our planning team, the GSA speakers, all DWR presenters. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we look forward to the next event.